being there in the history just takes it to a whole nother level. Like, you can learn about it, you can read about it, you can hear about it, but actually being there takes your emotions, it pretty much skyrockets.
Making history come alive, next on Black Nouveau. Hello, I'm Milton Dockery.
And I'm Faithe. Welcome to Black Nouveau. On this edition, we're going to hear from some students whose experiences with a civil rights pilgrimage helped them better understand history.
We'll profile Stephanie Hampton, the only African-American female captain in the Milwaukee Fire Department. And we'll continue our discussion on women and addictions.
But first, we tackle the controversy surrounding mammograms. Late last year, the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force issued new guidelines that recommended against women under 50 getting routine screenings. Naturally, this conflicting information has caused confusion. Here to help us sort out that confusion is Dr. Alonzo P. Walker. Welcome, Dr. Walker.
Thank you, Faith.
Let's get right to where you stand on this issue. When should women get mammograms?
The issue I should state is, when should women get mammograms? I follow the guidelines of the American Cancer Society, which states that when a woman who is without any major risk factors reaches the age of 40, they should get their first baseline mammogram. And depending upon the findings, if they have no other issues, no findings of concern, then it's every 2 years or after until age 50, when they should then start getting them every year. That is what I'm practicing at this present time with the patients that I follow in our breast care center.
Why did Preventative Services issue such, a statement as to now you don't have to do it at 40, you can do it after 50?
Mm-hmm. Well, the task force looked at information that was present in the scientific literature. And based on their review of the literature, of the data from studies that have been done, they put forth these recommendations, again, based on their assessment of what's in the literature. They felt that they did not perceive any major benefit in terms of what was published. So therefore, they came forth with these recommendations. Now, I should say that they are recommendations. These guidelines have not been put into practice at this moment in time. And as expected, as you stated, they created a lot of comment, and it has caused confusion.
Some of the comments and the confusion that has been going on has also been going on online. And women are talking about not getting mammograms at all. And
that is unfortunate. And you're right, they are talking about not getting mammograms at all, which I believe would be a detriment to certain populations. There are certain individuals who have issues regarding health care anyway, where they have to pay for it themselves. So if an agency of this stature makes comments of this nature, then they feel that they have good reasons for not getting a basic mammogram, because they feel that these individuals who, quote unquote, know what they're talking about. But again, when you follow women and see women who are young and have breast cancer in their 40s, we tend not to want to follow those recommendations that have been put forth.
How much does history, or how much can family health history still play a role in if a woman should get a mammogram at 40 or younger?
Well, actually, family history plays a major role. We all know that if a woman has a very strong family history of breast cancer, that is, women in her family who has relatives who've had breast cancer when they're young, who've had bilateral breast cancer, especially before the age of 40, these women clearly are at risk, and the data supports that. So waiting until age 50, that is not something that I don't believe anyone would recommend. And these guidelines really don't refer to patients who fall into a category like that because of their known risk They certainly should be getting mammograms and doing clinical self-breast examinations much sooner in terms of when they, in terms of their age.
You said you're still encouraging women in your practice to get mammograms at the appropriate age.
That is correct. And again, I still follow the American Cancer Society guidelines of the first mammogram at age 40, pending that there are no major risk factors. As you've stated, there is not a strong family history of breast cancer. In fact, some other cancers. So I would stick with the first mammogram at age 40. If there's a strong family history, depending on how strong that is, then they may have the first mammogram at age 35. And that would be the case when there's, as I said, a very strong family history of breast cancer.
Where can people go to get more information about this issue?
Well, first of all, women, anyone can go to the American Cancer Society website, and they have all of their published guidelines for not only breast but other cancers.
Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Walker.
Thank you very much, Faith.
When I remember in Birmingham, Alabama, when we were in that majestic struggle there, we would move out of the 16th Street Baptist Church day after day.
Sights and sounds of an era of America's history was given a closer look by students at Marquette University. They explored and reflected on where and how certain privileges of today were earned.
I was kind of expecting to feel much more uncomfortable than I did feel.
It was touching because you get to realize that it really happened, rather than saying it in books.
Directly across the street is Kelly Ingram Park. And sitting in the museum, looking across the street to the park in which the kids were sprayed at, I never knew it was like being there in the history just takes it to a whole nother level. You can learn about it, you can read about it, you can hear about it, but actually being there takes your emotions, it pretty much skyrockets.
These young people, along with others, participated in a civil rights pilgrimage. They left the comfort zone of their campus and trekked through 3 states, Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia. In Memphis, Tennessee, they visited the Civil Rights Museum. In Birmingham, Alabama, the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. And the King Center and Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. Their critical thinking and feelings were put to the test. Daryl Todd Jr., coordinator for intercultural programs, headed up the trip, which was to give students a sense of what it was like to be in the shoes of those who fought and walked during the civil rights movements.
I really wanted them to understand the impact that college students had on the movement and had on the trailblazing, if you will, of our society. Because a lot of times we look back at the civil rights movement and we hear Dr. King or these people, and we think that they were older, as in 40s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, when a lot of the movement really came out of student ran initiatives. That was one of the most touching parts about the trip, is realizing the power that college students had back in that era, how much they did, they did the sit-ins, and just seeing the perseverance, the self-control. Because if I'm at a lunch counter and someone just starts, putting out cigarettes on my face and starts beating me up, and it was not a violent protest, so I don't think I would have been able to just sit back in the chair and just continue standing there without doing anything.
The students had a chance to interact with a group of seniors who were touring the museum in Memphis. The seniors spoke about a missing generation of history.
It seemed like they were in awe of just listening to the seasoned people of our community talk about the things that were happening. And it brought out a lot of things that they didn't know or I didn't even know. As far as, because we always think of the South was the slave place, and, that's where all the segregation and things were going on, but the young ladies, or the senior ladies, were from the North in New York and Detroit, and they said that many of the same things were going on up there as well, just not as broadcast. And, I guess I had an assumption that in the North, they were getting the education about their history, when in all actuality, according to those ladies, that they really weren't.
They really stressed how the education is the great equalizer, and how they knew that, 50, 60 years ago, and how they really truly believe that still today.
The knowledge of the movement and having them understand the purpose and the importance of the movement was not necessarily passed down to the next generation
as effectively, and that's kind of, they feel that may be causing, or that is causing a lot of the problems going on with youth, like violence and drug use and all those things. So they felt like we just have to find a way to, like reach one, teach one, as one of them said, and just try to grab them and try to show them, this is what our people went through not even that long ago. Like 50 years is not long ago at all in history.
There's a lot of information that's left out when you learn about it in the classroom in high school. So talking to them about why that information is missing and how we can kind of carry it on for generations to come and educate the students who are currently in school. They did kind of talk about how their generation kind of chose not to talk about it, and as a result they feel that it was kind of lost in the mix.
The knowledge that they passed down wasn't much, maybe because it's hurtful. Like they don't really want to remember those things. Like it's hard to talk about those things. But I do, like they stress the fact that we need to speak with elders in order to get a better history, in order to embrace our history, because like I'm an educated male, but I didn't know a lot of the stuff that I learned down there.
Colleen Rooney, student teaches at Mesmer High School and sees firsthand the result of young people not knowing their history.
I see my students really struggle with that, that they don't know where they come from. And I know where I come from, I know my heritage, and I see my African American students really struggling with their identity. And I think part of that is because they don't have that community and they can't necessarily find a place to show that pride in their African American culture. So I guess that really surprised me. I didn't know how alive it was still down there. I mean, we're visiting the Jazz Museum and we're going to institutes and visiting people just on the street, and it's so there. That community is so there.
Brandon Rule was moved by the children of the movement's perseverance.
But the thing that really surprised me was how strong the kids were. They were like, no, we know the dogs are out there, we know the houses are out there, but that's not gonna stop us. And that surprised me the most.
We've got some difficult days ahead.
And the watching of the entire Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s Memphis speech.
Because I've been to the mountaintop.
Yeah, we're gonna make it to the promised land, but I may not be there with you. That's one of like the bigger quotes that he said. And they had to help him to a seat. Like, cause he was pretty much like in tears, and he couldn't really, he stumbled over to a seat. They had to help him to a seat because he knew his life was coming to an end soon. Like, he had more bomb threats at his house. He had a lot more homicide, like notes. He couldn't ride on a couple of airplanes. So just learning more about what actually went on in like Dr. King's life, like close to his death, was crazy.
I may not get there with you.
Attending Dr. King's alma mater, Morehouse College's homecoming, magnified the trip's experience.
At Morehouse, I was just like blown away. It was a lot to take in. I feel like I never had taken myself outside my comfort zone before to realize what it feels like to be like the only white person in the football stands at a homecoming game. And it was really emotional when we would go through group reflections in the evening and to hear my black peers, say to me, now you know what we feel like every single day at Marquette.
You see the movie Drumline, but it's really like that. The bands have fun, the dancers have fun, and it was their homecoming, so all the alumni was there. So after, like in the second half of the football game, no one really watched the game because all the Morehouse's like old band members and cheerleaders and drum majors, they were all just on the track doing all the same dance. And it was just funny, they were doing all the same dance, but there was like, one of the people was like 50 years old, and then you have like 18-year-olds, so they know that same dance perfectly, no rehearsal. And just to see that, it was just great. And then the step show, it was just great. Just a whole experience, because we were from Marquette, and it's definitely a whole nother world. So I love that experience. I found 1,000 possible wives. I just had to go back and get them. I didn't have the rings on me, so I couldn't.
The traces of an era. Trees with no bark because of water hoses used on marchers. A plaque for 4 children murdered during the movement. A tomb for a man taken too soon was what this civil rights pilgrimage was about. Each year as we move further from the movement, more history is lost.
As an educated person in society, they have an obligation to give back and shape society, but to also realize that what they can do at this moment is something that they should do, and that the future is depending on them, and they cannot wait until they are 30 or 40 to get things done, but to actually realize that they can be as integral as some of these figures were at the ages they are now.
I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man.
Last week, we started a discussion about the problem of African American women and addictions. We're joined this week by Latika Washington, Program Coordinator for the Genesis Women Residential Program, and Shirley Hughes, a graduate of the Maida House Program. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you.
Shirley, tell us your story. What caused your addiction, and how did you overcome it?
Oh, my addiction started I'm 46 now, and it started, I was about the age of 21. And I just remember always feeling sad. I believe depression. I was diagnosed as bipolar, and I had a lot of suicidal thoughts and attempts as well. So I used drug and drank alcohol to numb all the sadness, the darkness that I was feeling.
So how did you overcome it though, Shirley?
I entered Maida House.
Okay.
They have a residential treatment program, which is long term.
Okay.
I went into residential, and then from there I went into day treatment program and outpatient, and it is very, very extensive. They helped me to deal with my mental illness because I was diagnosed as bipolar, and they helped me to deal with and find out who I was, and to face those demons that I was having. And also while I was out using, there were a lot of traumatic events that happened to me as well.
Now, Latika, is Shirley's story typical?
Yes, it is a typical story. A lot of women who suffer with addiction have a lot of childhood trauma, sexual trauma, depression, mental illness, undiagnosed, undetected for so long, and it's not uncommon for them to turn to drugs and alcohol to cope with those symptoms.
Okay. Now, how big of a problem is addiction among females in the Milwaukee area? Either one of you?
It's very large, very big, because a lot of women have suffered things when we were children, you know, and it's just so devastating, and not knowing how to cope. And then for like myself, I'm not married, so I have children and have to raise the children by myself. The fathers, no help from them as far as moral support, you know, state issue child support, you know, warrants to them. But it's very hard. And then with my mental illness, I never learned how to cope.
Okay. Now, Latika, who are the women? Class, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, the disease of addiction has no particular race or class that it affects. It doesn't discriminate, as I like to say. It can affect the poor, the wealthy, the educated, the uneducated. A lot of times it's a woman's unique personal situation that leads to the disease of addiction. It has been my experience that women get addicted out of ignorance, and a lot of times they're exposed to drugs through their significant others, through family members, friends, people that they entrust who don't really tell them exactly what picking up that substance can result in long term.
So when it comes to addiction, no boundaries.
No boundaries.
No class.
At all.
It affects all people.
No.
What happens when women become addicted that is different from men?
Gender-wise, when women become addicted, there's a lot of factors. For instance, they might not have a lot of family support, so they don't want to seek treatment. They might have knowledge of available resources or treatment programs. A lot of programs are not designed to treat women with their children and provide housing, financial support, or assistance. So it can vary from person to person as far as obstacles when it comes to obtaining treatments.
Shirley, want to have anything?
Yes, with Maida House, I'm so glad that with the treatment they had, I was able to bring my child there with me. I was homeless at the time. I didn't have anywhere to stay. My family was very happy that I did enter the program, and you know, they helped with my older children. But I learned, they taught me, you know, parenting and things like that. But I was just completely homeless. I didn't know what to do.
Shirley, in your comments, I hear a theme coming out. You decided to seek treatment for yourself.
I did.
And oftentimes people go because of others, and oftentimes that does not lead to success, correct?
Correct. I have done that. This last success, so far, enter treatment many other times.
Okay. What kinds of, briefly, what kind of drugs are involved?
It can range from alcohol, cocaine, particularly crack cocaine. I'm seeing an increase in opiate users versus, heroin or prescription drugs, marijuana, crystal meth is another rising drug.
Shirley, in about 10 seconds, what kind of services does Maida House provide?
Oh, they provide deep, extensive, comprehensive treatment where they help you to find who you are.
Holistic approach.
Holistic approach, exactly.
And Latika, same question. What kinds of services does Genesis provide?
We offer AOTA psychoeducation, daily living skills, job readiness, GED classes, a holistic approach to mind, body, and spirit in regards to educating the individual about the disease and teaching them that recovery is a lifelong process.
Okay. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephanie Hampton is the only African-American female captain in the Milwaukee Fire Department. A teenage single parent, her story is proof that you can overcome challenges. Stephanie Hampton has been with the Milwaukee Fire Department for 17 years. In 1992, when she joined, she was one of 4 African-American women firefighters. She's now a captain. Stephanie, you're the only African-American female captain in the state of Wisconsin. How does that make you feel?
I can give you my thoughts immediately. As honored as I am to hold that title, to know that I became the first of anything in 2000 in regards to the first African-American female holding a title in an organization that's been around, 100+ years. It's bittersweet because it should not be the first at this point, this point in our lives. So it says a lot. But on the flip side, it says that we are moving forward, not as quickly as I'd like for us to be moving forward or progressing or diversifying to look like our community. Not as quickly as I'd like for it to be, but it is happening slowly. We're having some change.
How and why did you become a firefighter?
I had a son very early on. My son was born, I was actually 15. My birthday's February 6th. He was born January 21st. So I was actually 15 years old. And had my child, graduated from high school, went into the military at 17. So I'm on my way out of the military, and my brother, Charles Goins, who just retired from the fire department after, I think he had 30 years, 78, yeah, 31 years. He just retired this summer. I was coming out of the Navy, and he asked, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. I got to take care of that boy, Brandon. And so he said, the fire department is hiring. I said, well, okay, I'll try it, So actually I flew back and forth from Virginia while I was still in the military. And that's pretty much the why. I had to take care of my child. And how is my brother turned me on to it. Never had a desire to be a firefighter. Always wanted to actually be a doctor. It's a whole nother story. But yeah, so that's it. Just kind of fell into it. And I can honestly say, had I not had family on the job, I probably would not have known anything about it.
You mentioned that you have an interest in medicine.
We're sitting in the back of a med rig.
Hence, the paramedics. Let's talk about how you integrated, your interest in medicine and your interest in being a firefighter.
I was a corpsman in the military. That's what I did. So I worked in a hospital. And as I said, I could never see myself as anything else but a doctor as a kid. And after I got pregnant, had my child, it's like, okay, direction went completely different, had to take another road. And when I came on this job, you had to be a firefighter for a year, I think, before you could put in for the med program. And it was something that just always had an interest in it. Again, I've truly always enjoyed helping that one-on-one interaction, that bedside, the bedside manner, that interaction, making that difference outside of running into the burning building, saving lives, but yeah, this part of it. So when I found out about our med program, all that we're allowed to do in the med program. It was just like a natural fit, as close as I could get in this field to, living that dream.
Men have traditionally been recruited for fire departments across the country. Stephanie shares her views on inspiring young women into the field.
I'll be the first one to say fire department is not for everyone. It really isn't. But to truly inspire someone, you have to get people such as myself, my partner. I have an African-American female as a partner, Sharon Purefoy, get us out into the schools, get us out there, educating, bringing people into the firehouse, allowing them to come in and see what we do, to do some ride-alongs and realize that it's not all about just running into burning buildings, because that's when people hear firefighting, that's truly what they think of. Oh, I don't want to run no burning building. That's the mentality. And I don't blame them. If you don't know, there would be fear there, especially after the 9/11. So you truly have to educate them. And then there are just some people that it's in them. Some women, it's in them. They're quite capable of doing it. And others, either you want and you can do it, or you have no interest in it. And I'm okay with that, because if you're not interested, I don't want you there beside me. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Us getting out there, and folk who have an interest seeking us out also. You have to do some research on your own if you want something. You go after and you get it.
If you'd like information about Genesis Behavior Services or Maida House, you can find information on how to reach them on the Black Nouveau website at mptv.org.
And we want to extend our thoughts and prayers to the people of Haiti and their relatives with wishes for a speedy recovery and rebuilding.
And that wraps up this edition of Black Nouveau.
Remember, in the coming week, do something to expand your world. Good night.
Good night.